Good afternoon, students, alumni, faculty, and staff. My name is Elena Billing, and I'm the Associate Director of Alumni Relations for STHM. Today, I'm pleased to introduce the STHM Alumni Association's Minority Alumni Coalition, or the MAC. The MAC is dedicated to providing educational experiences for all STHM students from diverse perspectives. Today, the MAC's Education Committee, led by Gabrielle Salomon, presents an STHM look at post-grad education. This panel will be moderated by STHM alum Lisa Payton. Lisa is the Assistant Director of Compliance at Rutgers University. She received her bachelor's degree in Sport and Recreation Management from STHM in 2016 and received her master's in Educational Leadership from the University of Central Florida. Lisa serves on the STHM Alumni Association's Board of Directors in addition to being a member of and volunteer with the MAC. Before Lisa introduces our panelists, I'd like to go over a few logistical items. First, please feel free to ask questions using the Q&A function on your screen throughout the webinar. All questions will be answered at the end of the webinar. Please also note that we are recording today's session. Lastly, for those considering a graduate or certificate program, STHM's Assistant Director of Graduate Enrollment, Michelle Saporin, will be joining us later to share some postgraduate opportunities that exist right here at STHM. With that, I want to thank you all for joining today's discussion and also to thank the MAC for hosting all of us today. So I'll now turn things over to Lisa, who will introduce today's panelists. Lisa.
Thanks, Elena, and thank you again, everyone who's joining us today. I'm excited to welcome our 5 panelists, and I will give them a minute or two to introduce themselves with what they pursued after STHM and their current role. So we'll start with Denise first, a 2010 STHM grad.
Afternoon. My name is Denise Brown, soon to be Denise Brown Lozada in 4 days. Thank you for that slight So my name is Denise Brown. Like I said, my current role is athletics budget manager at Pace University in New York City. I completed my master's degree at Cal U of PA, graduated in 2012, and my degree was in sports studies, and my concentration was in intercollegiate athletics.
Awesome, thanks, Denise. Alexis, we'll move on to you, STHM 2019 grad.
Hi, everyone. I'm Alexis Holland, 2019 grad from undergrad in Sport and Recreation Management. I am currently an analyst for the Global Partnerships team here at Monumental Sports. Currently, within that, I take care of supporting our corporate partnerships team in all aspects of the sales cycle and supporting them in anything they need on the data side. I got my degree at University of Maryland, and I graduated last year in 2021, and my degree was in Masters of Marketing Analytics.
Thanks, Alexis. Sean, we'll go with you next, a 2006 STHM grad.
Hey, everyone. Thank you for the warm welcome, everyone, and congrats to Denise. So I graduated from, as you said, I graduated from STHM and Sports and Recreation Management in 2006. And from there, I had a kind of a bit of my early career, then to mid-career now. But I graduated from Villanova with my MBA. I went through their executive MBA program, and from right around 2000, I graduated in 2019. So now I'm at ReloMetrics, which is a sponsorship intelligence platform. So working with both rights holders, so teams and agencies, and then on the brand side. So I'm a sales director that oversees a team, as well as I sell into brands myself.
Thanks, Sean. Next, we have Taylor, a 2014 STHM grad.
Hi, everyone. My name is Taylor Landon Freeman. I currently work at Villanova University as an assistant director for industry advising in their career center. So I work with students and employers in the sport, hospitality, marketing, communication, media, fashion, industry. So I give career advice to the students, and then the employers that are interested in recruiting those students, I work with them to put on events and other ways to connect. And I studied at Oklahoma State University, and I graduated in 2019 with my master's of science in educational leadership with a focus on student affairs.
Awesome, thanks, Taylor. And then last but not least, we have Casey, a 2009 STHM grad.
Everyone, I am a 2009 STHM grad, sport and recreation management. I currently am a school development associate for Big Teams. It's an online athletic management solution company. I'm a liaison to high school athletic directors across the country. We have over 4,000 partnerships that we do with high school athletic departments. And I received my master's in 2017 in sport management from Mount St. Mary's in Maryland. And I'm currently a PhD candidate in education with a concentration in sport and athletic management at North Central University.
Awesome, thanks everyone. So our first question for the group is, what was the primary motivator that influenced you to pursue or to further your education? And did you give up anything to pursue your degree? Denise, we'll start with you.
Sure. So I always knew I wanted to get my master's degree. So I didn't really need to be convinced of it. So I think STHM, it really gave me the opportunity to kind of be exposed to the different levels and, you know, all the opportunities in the sport industry. And so my primary motivation was basically just fine tuning. I knew then and there when I was graduating that I wanted to pursue college athletics. And so that's when I decided to explore that in my search on the master's degree. And so Cal U of PA, they actually had a program literally that was intercollegiate athletics specifically focused. So, you know, I just figured it was a good match. They offered online as well. And so it worked for me as well. As far as things I gave up, right? I didn't really give up anything because I didn't wait from graduating to pursuing my master's that much. So I wouldn't really call it giving up anything. Were there a couple things I might have missed out on? Yes. You know, those nice celebratory trips, you know, with the girlfriends. Yay, we graduated. You know, I missed out on those. You know, when I decided to pursue my master's degree in 2011 to 12, really, I feel like the focus wasn't geared towards people being able to work full time and also pursue their master's degree. So I wasn't able to work full time at that time. So that was something I kind of, you know, I guess you can say gave up or didn't have the opportunity to explore while I was getting my master's degree.
Thanks, Denise. Alexis, anything to add?
Yeah, so when I graduated in 2019, I was in a kind of a different predicament. So I initially started in inside sales for the Wizards. And if you know anything about early 2020, that is when the pandemic happened. So very early on, about 3 months in, we were already working from home. And in my head, I always knew that I might want to go back to school, but in that moment, it kind of made it more of a necessity almost, because I kind of, every other day, you're kind of seeing on LinkedIn, different departments are getting furloughed at different locations all the time. So in the back of my head, I was really kind of more so in self-preservation mode, kind of thinking about next steps, like if and when I do get furloughed, what can I do to make sure that when I come out on the other side, I don't have to go back to sales, because not saying sales is terrible, but I didn't want to be in sales anymore. And I knew that. So I wanted to make sure that when things kind of did come back to a sense of normalcy, I could be in the position to push myself into another place. So a little bit more self-preservation, but giving up things. It was definitely a a full-time master's program. So I would have had to stop working full-time if I wanted to, but I would say unfortunately, but also luckily, I was actually furloughed like a week before classes started. So it kind of opened up the perfect amount of time so I could fully focus on that in that moment. So. Yeah.
Awesome. Sean, what was your primary motivator?
So I say first and foremost, I would consider myself a lifelong learner. Just kind of if I go back to just my experience at STHM and with Jeffrey Montague and the entire faculty, and then kind of the lifelong friends that I picked up while pursuing my undergraduate degree. I realized that it could take me to a kind of a different place in my life as kind of a first generation college graduate. So I always had that in the back of my mind. It's like, well, like how much further can I go if I pursue a master's degree? Like I would say I've been fortunate to kind of reach the top of the sales profession in professional sports, but I always had an itch to kind of learn a little bit more beyond kind of the sports element. So I started to kind of look around and think like, what do I want to do? Like, how do I want to broaden my skill set? Like, what can I add to the toolbox, right? So it was like, I'm missing like this quantitative element, the financial component. Like, we had some exposure to marketing and stuff like that. And I, of course, like team up with marketing often being in a sales role, but I don't know what they did. I had no idea what marketing did. I had no idea what finance did. And if I wanted to progress in my career, I knew that I needed to learn that quantitative part first and foremost, and what drives a business from each area of the business. And that, just being exposed to that at Villanova in an executive MBA format, like I learned just as much from my peers there than I did from the program itself. As far as kind of a trade-off or what did I give up? I started the executive MBA program with a 9-month-old. So I was married, had a 9-month-old. I'm a VP of sales at a company. So there was a big time trade-off. Not being home on the weekends, once a month, I was away for 3 full days. So like that was the biggest, and then of course the financial ramifications, right? Which of course we make up on the back end, but I would say just the family time and kind of missing. I didn't miss my son grow up because of course now I've been home every day for the past 2 years, but that was a big trade-off during the kind of going through the program.
So the biggest step to getting to graduate school is the application process. Taylor, can you start us off with this question and detail your timeline for applying to graduate school and all that it involved?
Yeah, so my story is probably going to look a little bit different than the other panelists who are going to answer this question because I was already working at a college. So after graduating undergrad, I went down to Texas and I worked at Hyatt for a couple of years. And my now husband, got into a PhD program at Oklahoma State. I went up there with him and then I worked as an assistant manager for dining services. So I did like banquets and on-campus events. And during that time, along with, all the regular hospitality things, food service things that I was used to, one of the big differences between that role and when I was at Hyatt was that most of my staff was student workers. So I really started getting fulfillment out of kind of mentoring them and, helping them find their transitional skills that they're learning, through catering. And how is that how can they put that on their resume when they're like a bio student, stuff like that. So I actually started looking into master's programs at Oklahoma State. That was the only school I was applying to because I was living there. When you work at a college, most colleges give you very good discount for tuition. So I did only apply to the one program. It took me probably about 6 to 9 months because I needed to study for the GMAT. and then just go through the application. I was still working full time. We didn't have to do an interview, but I did do the GMAT. I had to buy like the testing material. I did a couple practice tests. I actually did really average on the GMAT. So anybody, like, I'm pretty sure I was actually slightly below average, honestly. But I still got into the program. Full transparency, I had a pretty good GPA, STHM. So it was a little, and I was, a little hurt coming in on academic probation for like, I think I had to do 3 classes. I had to get at least a B in. I actually ended up graduating the program with a 4.0, so I was fine. But those standardized tests they're rough. So if you're thinking about grad school and you're kind of going through that, just know that most grad programs do look at you holistically as a person and not just those standardized tests. And so I did my program part-time because I was still working full-time. But my last year, I did do a graduate assistantship. And for those who don't know what that is, that's when you are working in an area related to what you're studying. And they give you a tuition, like remission or voucher or anything like that. And usually like a little bit of money as well. So I was making less money than when I was working full-time, but my tuition was still covered, thankfully. And I was able to get some hands-on experience that helped me make that transition a little bit more smooth from hospitality to higher education.
Awesome. Casey, can you detail your process in applying to grad school?
Sure. So I, like Taylor, I also have a kind of windy road, unique process to my graduate school process. So I graduated from STHM in 2009. And after I graduated, I was a junior college coach in New York for a few years. I was also a sports information director. And at the time, I wanted more. So I tried to level up, and I was looking for graduate assistant positions those first few years. And when I didn't find a right fit, I ended up transitioning from New York to Maryland, where I got into the education field as a teacher. And I'd spent a few years doing different roles. Obviously I didn't go to school to become a teacher, but I was also a high school coach. And during that time, it was just a unique experience. I was able to apply different things I learned from STHM as far as like running events for the athletics department, doing different things with our basketball program. And then during that time, I had applied for graduate school at a Division III school, and it was private, and it was in psychology. I had such an interest in psychology as a coach working with student athletes. So I wanted to better myself and becoming a better coach. So during that time, I had to take the GRE, and I did not do well at all. Luckily, the school still accepted me because, like Taylor said, it's a holistic process. So I was fortunate for that. And then within 2 years, things shifted with the program. I ended up not completing the program, but ended up going to another master's program at Mount St. Mary's. They had literally just started a new program in sport management, and they were looking for students, and I took a risk and I applied. I was part of the first full year cohort, ended up graduating in a year. I had a much better GPA than my undergrad because I was able to focus. I think I had like a 3.5. During undergrad, I had a work study job in the athletics department. I did a whole bunch of different things. So that was most of my story from my master's. And then having transitioned to being a PhD student now, I was looking for just different schools to take it to the next level. And that was probably like at least a 3 to 4 month process. And basically the first school to get back to me and say yes. It's just like any college recruiting, you know. Sometimes you don't go, you don't always go where you want to go, but you go, you know, with whoever says yes and whatever's the best fit. So, and I loved it. You know, it's been a great experience so far, and you know, I'd never imagined being in a 100% online program, but it's allowed me to have time to be able to work full time and do different things. So.
Thanks. Denise, any input?
Absolutely. I think I can agree with both of you guys that, you know, everyone's path is super different. So my path, basically in my timeline, I walked across the Temple stage in January of 2011, and I applied, sent my application in that same February. I received an interview that February. I got accepted in March, and my first day of classes was July. And so it was like super quick. Ended up finishing the program in 4 straight semesters, summer, fall, spring, and the summer, and I was done. As far as testing, they didn't require any testing, so I lucked out there, which was probably one of the reasons I went with them and decided to apply. I was so over it as a student. And so that was probably one of my determining factors as well. But yeah, it was actually a STHM classmate of mine who kind of pushed me, and we completed our masters together, fully online and full time as well. Yeah, I didn't do any GA positions, grad assistantships. Probably could have saved me some money if I did, but because I was online, you know, that kind of wasn't an option for me at that time. Yeah, and basically that's it.
Thanks. I'm happy to know I wasn't the only one who struggled with the GRE and the testing. I just got it finished and I got it accepted. I was like, okay, we're done. We're not going to do this again. So a common theme in this panel is that many of you have pursued graduate degrees that may have differed from your undergraduate degree. So how have you combined and applied those 2 subject areas and degrees to your current role? So Alexis, we'll start with you.
Yeah, so for my role, I think I kind of almost have like the perfect mixture of degrees, almost, I like to say. So of course, the undergrad in sport and recreation management, I took a lot of different courses that kind of gave you an overall feel of what it looks like on the business side with sports. So how marketing works with this person, or the many different aspects that there are in each of those different alleys. I can think of like specific courses that really, I can feel myself now like, hey, I remember like doing coursework around this or learning about just a broad amount about certain things. So like media and communications, sport society, certain courses like those, especially I would say the sales course that I took is probably the one that I fall back on the most, kind of learning what the sponsorship cycle looks like. And I remember we had like a speaker come in that kind of told us about it. And I thought like, wow, 9 to 12 months to close a deal. That's crazy. Now that's kind of my life, like helping them at the beginning where there's prospecting, then helping them with the pitch with some numbers. And then on the back end, when it comes to putting that stuff up, making sure the stuff is running correctly. And then now into my master's degree in marketing analytics, a lot of that stuff. So my degree was very, very technical. I like to say a lot more technical than I thought it was going to be initially, very challenging in the course, but I got to learn how a lot of the metrics that we use now are actually formulated. So we don't have to do a lot of the computing ourselves. We have different vendors that do all that stuff for us. But if someone has a question, like a follow-up, or, hey, why were the numbers this good on this day compared to that? With that background knowledge that I do have, I can say, the signage isn't as good, so maybe the cameras aren't picking up it as much, or, oh, the numbers weren't working that way because this, and that. So lots of really great things that I'm able to kind of put together by merging both of my degrees and kind of feels like two sides of my brain are working at the same time sometimes, but it's pretty cool. And I even joke with someone else that was a sports management major, but not from STHM. And we talk about like, wow, like I remember talking about stuff like this in class and like we actually worked it. So it is kind of nice to see those full circle moments come up.
Thanks, Alexis. Sean, how have you combined your 2 degrees?
So I would say that the first thing that sticks out in my mind is kind of the values that I kind of picked up in STHM. And when I say that, it's kind of how I show up at an organization and how prepared I am. And I remember being an intern at Madison Square Garden in like 2005. And there was one other person from STHM and we stood out, of course. And that has always stuck with me, and how prepared we are in the workforce and how we can transform an organization from a kind of an effort standpoint and just kind of that preparedness element. And then I guess going over to kind of Villanova, I pick up this the kind of the quantitative element that I talked about, and then what's unique to, like, what are these unique business drivers? Because I'm working at this point, I'm working with brands, I'm working with like multinational brands, anywhere from PepsiCo to Anheuser-Busch, kind of over to Gatorades. And a lot of times I'm working with a C-level person who is still far and away, like way above where I am in my career right now, right? But I understand now like what matters to them more. And in a sales role, it's very powerful to understand what those business drivers are, because I'm able to make that match between the technology that I'm selling. I'm selling a kind of this emerging technology in a space that hasn't historically had access to this. The way that sponsorship has been measured in the past has been pretty antiquated with some old 30-year-old kind of technology. But now to be able to have that conversation at a C level, and kind of match what matters to them. So, but again, it all leans back on being prepared for that, and that's where that kind of blend comes together today.
Yeah, similarly to Sean and Alexis, I feel like my role that I'm in now is just a great combination of both of my degrees. And I actually really pitched that in my interviews, which maybe that's one of the reasons why I got the job, or maybe they just thought it was really great. But as I said earlier, I work with students, so my master's degree is in higher ed. So I do rely on like my student development theories and just different ways to like connect with students and help progress them, in their career development and also their like personal identity development. But the other part of my job is working with employers. So I do rely heavily on like, things that we learned like in Dr. Rosen's class with events and like senior SEM. I'm working with various departments to help put on career fairs, information sessions, other networking type events. So I think that was a big draw for me for this role, was because I was able to use kind of like both skills. I could help the students and kind of get that intrinsic gratitude, but then also like really use my extroverted side and kind of like, talk with these employers and tell them why Villanova students are so great, not better than Temple students, but Villanova students are great. And tell them why they're so great and why they should like recruit here, and kind of like sell them on the school. And then when they say, okay, like I'll do, this event with you, I'll sign up for the career fair, following up with them, ensuring that they have everything they need, anticipating future needs, things like that, so they have a great experience and they continue to recruit with us.
So do you have any resources you suggest students look into regarding postgraduate degrees? Maybe it's resume building, essay editing. Casey, we'll throw it to you first.
Sure. So with post-grad degrees, the biggest thing to start with, I always say, is just get a notebook and a pen and paper, or pen or pencil, and just really jot your thoughts down and jot, what are you passionate about? What do you like? What do you gravitate towards too? Because a lot of times we could get caught up in so much of what's going on externally, we forget like, what our true passion is or what our calling cards are. So I would just start with that. Think about, what are some of your goals, and just jot them down. They'll definitely help steer you in more of a concise direction as far as where you want to go, as opposed to picking a school and then falling in line with what they have. Another one resource is certifications. Certifications are definitely helpful. A lot of times students could be hesitant about jumping right into graduate school, but if you look at LinkedIn has a lot of great certifications. There is two websites called edx.org and coursera.org. Coursera has what's called a MicroMaster that you could get. So if you're not 100% sure that you want to go into a field, it's just something to kind of pursue. I think it's like 5 courses. And then with edx.org, you're able to actually there's free courses and some that are paid courses. They're provided by universities all over the world. And it's just a way to kind of beta test to see if you actually like something or not. And then my last resource, other than books, is just podcasts. There's a lot of great podcasts out there. Unfortunately, I've taken on some student loan debt, and that's one thing that led me to just being more avid listener of podcasts. So, and all things finance, obviously. Money is not the end all be all, but it's, definitely a big part of pursuing higher education, as far as, are you going to pay for school? Is it student loans? Is it, grants or fellowships or things like that? So just really educating yourself on what's out there. And it's always helpful to listen to the experts first.
Awesome, Denise.
Yes. So as a budget manager, I'm gonna talk about money, Casey. But the bad news, I think, I feel like money and being able to afford college will probably always factor in. From it factored in back in the day, and I'll probably always factor into people's decisions making moving forward. But the good news is, I feel like the ball is in the student's court. There's so many colleges struggling right now with filling their rosters and everything like that. So what I think should be a good resource is literally calling the school, the financial aid department. A lot of things aren't advertised as far as the packaging that they can give you specific to you. So I wouldn't, I guess I wouldn't get afraid when you just see the tuition dollars. If you really do like that school, you should give them a call, give their financial aid department a call, and find out what can be worked out for you. What are you eligible for? And you'll see those numbers really go down. So I think that's a great resource. Additionally, on the money side, grants. I know when we were in STHM, there was a lot of emphasis on professional associations and joining those as students. And also, when you're no longer a student, those fees go way up. So join them all now. And, in those professional associations, they're usually giving out grants for, for pursuing your education after your bachelor's degree. So I think those would be the two resources I would say you should definitely pursue.
Awesome. Alexis, do you have any additional resources that haven't already been named?
Yeah, just a couple, but I would say there are 2 points where 100% on my end as well. I would say money was a very big, important factor in going to school. And in that, one piece of advice that I was given was that, like, okay, you're going to try to get this degree. Do you know what careers are even available on the other end for that. So really, I would say use LinkedIn, like stalk people that may have gone through that same program, because they're going to be your best refers. They can tell you like, hey, this did prepare me, or hey, I feel like I wasted my money. Like that's going to be the best thing. And then also reaching out to people that if you see a trajectory where, if I get this degree, maybe I'll qualify for these roles, you might reach out to them and they say, hey, you don't need a degree, you qualify now. So boom, that saved you how much money, who knows? But little things like that. And then I would say an actual tool, especially when it came to applying, was Grammarly. I feel like a lot of people, that was like a big thing when I was in college, to be able to save myself with essay writing and all that good stuff. When you're applying to those things, a simple misedit or wrong word or thing like that in an essay can potentially push you out of the program, depending how competitive it is to get in. So definitely give yourself an easy cheat sheet that's like, it's free to, easy to download, save yourself on all emails.
Thanks, Alexis. So we have one last question for the panel, and it's open to anyone on the panel to answer. What advice would you wish you had received when you were thinking of going back to school?
I'll start. A lot of things get, I guess, misconstrued. And one of my favorite quotes, well, used to be my favorite quote, is bet on yourself. And I'm not like a betting type of person, but I actually took the phrase and said, don't bet on yourself, invest in yourself. A lot of what we talk about is their investments, if you think about it. So just reframing your mind about what's an investment versus an expense. School's definitely an investment. Higher education is definitely an investment. So just thinking about what type of return on investment are you going to get, or what would you like to get after?
I can hop in here. One thing I wish someone would have let me know was that internships are just as important when you're getting your master's as well as undergrad. I remember in undergrad, it was kind of like pumped into us like, hey, like it's not just what your resume says, it's not what your coursework, your grades, it's what your resume says, your experience that's really going to help kind of push you through there. And while getting my master's, knowing I was switching from a sales role where I wanted to be more so on I wasn't even sure about the sponsorship side. I just knew analytics was my thing. I happened to get an internship that was in that sponsorship side. And I think that was probably the big pushing factor, just knowing that I did have some experience that wasn't required. In STHM undergrad, I know it is required, so you kind of have that buffer, but in most master's programs that I looked at, they didn't require us to get any internships, and people had a very hard time securing them because they kind of waited until the summer. So as soon as you know that you're going to be wanting to go back to school, maybe start looking into internships too, to be prepared for that end goal thing, like I said.
Can happen too. I think just remembering that networking is just as important. When you're in a grad program, you're kind of, at least my program was cohort style, so you're with the same students pretty much for all the classes that you're taking. And then all your classes are very focused on your degree. So you don't have like gen eds like in undergrad where you can kind of meet people from other schools and other majors and kind of connect with them. So just taking some time to, join some grad organizations or just do some events. If you're doing an in-person program, going to some events on campus so you're meeting other people, just to help build your network while you're in the program.
I'm gonna agree with that one. Yeah, and what Sean was saying, don't underestimate the importance of your peers, learning from those peers, staying connected with them as well. I guess I just want to give, some advice for online folks. I didn't realize how important it was for me to actually walk across the stage, and like I said, I actually did the program with another student from STHM, and he didn't walk across the stage, and that he regretted it. Literally, it was a 6-hour drive. Me and my mom piled in the car. We just drove, and just being able to kind of walk across the stage after just seeing everybody on a screen for a year and a half. It really made me feel like I could really just enjoy it. I can, really just be grateful for, the experience. It wasn't just a piece of paper for me anymore. It was like a full experience. And so, if you have the opportunity to definitely walk across the stage and join your classmates at the end of it all, I would definitely do that.
Moment. But before we get there, we have a special guest, Michelle Saporin, Assistant Director of Graduate Enrollment, and she's here to talk about some graduate opportunities at STHM.
Thank you, Lisa. I didn't know you were going to be here. We go way back. Thank you guys so much for letting me hop in last minute. As Lisa mentioned, my name is Michelle Saporin, and I am also actually an STHM alum. I graduated with my bachelor's in sport and recreation management back in 2015, and I love STHM so much that I wanted to come back in this role and be the go-to person for people who are looking to continue their education. So Elena, I don't know if your slides are on here, if you're advancing them. Okay, cool. Yeah, so I just wanted to give a shameless plug for STHM and the master's degree options that we do offer. If you guys are interested, we have a lot of really great options here, and not just master's degrees, but we also have graduate certificates. They're very popular. A lot of people are looking to go the certificate route as well. So you do have options if you're considering something down the road. We have 2 in-person programs, our Master of Science in Sport Business. So if you're somebody who was in the Sport and Recreation Management program during your undergrad, this is a really good option if you are looking to continue on. Maybe you're a little bit early on in your career and you're looking to kind of catapult yourself into that next role. Maybe you're trying to become an athletic director and you're working your way towards that. There is an internship component in there, so you'll see that again. And then we also have our Master of Science in Hospitality Management, which is our other in-person program. So for our hospitality folks, again, if you're looking to kind of catapult yourself into that next role that you're in with your current company, be back on campus. All these classes are after 5 p.m. So we know that none of us really do typically work a 9 to 5. So we understand that things might be a little different, but there is a lot of flexibility with your classes being later in the day. There is also an internship component with that program as well. And there's an ability to do a master's project. So like I mentioned, if you are currently full-time, fully employed, you have the opportunity to do a project instead if the internship doesn't quite match what your goals are at that time. And then we have 2 online programs. So we've all been online the last couple of years, a little bit more than probably what we were expecting. So these online programs are really good if maybe you're not local to Philadelphia or you're just looking for that enhanced flexibility. Everything is conducted via Zoom, which is what we're using right now. Our Executive Master's program in Sport Business, that is for individuals who are a little bit set in their career in the sport industry, minimum of 5 years of experience or more to get into this program. It is very much focused on getting yourself into that management role. So if you're looking to get yourself into the C-suite at your respective organization or get yourself to that GM status, that is going to be a really great way for you to kind of, take the coursework that you're learning and immediately apply it to what you're doing right now. And again, it's 100% online, so it's very flexible. And then our Travel and Tourism Master's program is also online. And this program is for those who are looking to maybe you're working for a travel agency right now, again, trying to catapult yourself back into your respective industries. And there are full-time and part-time options across all of these programs. So there is the application here. I'm thinking the slide deck will be shared with you guys afterwards, but this is just kind of a snapshot of what master's options we offer at STHM. Kind of a brief overview of like what with match, but if we go to the next slide, if you're thinking maybe the master's isn't quite what I want to do right now, I kind of just want to get a little bit of a taste, we have graduate certificates. And the really unique thing about these is that the classes are pulled directly from the master's program. So we have two programs that basically funnel up through certificates. Our online Master of Science in Travel and Tourism has 3: Global Tourism, Destination Management, and Tourism Analytics. This is all just 3 classes. So the online program, you would do 1 class for a 5-week period and then you'd move on to the next course. So you're only focusing on 1 class at a time for this program, but you have 3 options, and the classes that comprise each individual certificate vary. So a lot of times people will just look at what classes are offered and go towards that, or they want to get into the more of the analytical background, so they'll go through tourism analytics. So that's step 1. Step 2 is our in-person certificates. This is through our hospitality management master's program. We have the service excellence certificate, as well as an event management certificate. So a little bit of a different approach. Again, if you're just looking to get a little bit of a taste, depending on how long you've been out of school, if you want to kind of ease yourself back into it. But again, a lot of really flexible options at STHM. Again, I'm a little bit biased. I think we all are, but I just had to come on and just, remind you guys, what there is for you guys back here at STHM. We didn't go anywhere. We're still here. And I recognize a lot of the names who are on here today, so it's really exciting to see everybody. But that's pretty much my spiel. I will, I guess, turn it back over to Lisa. If anyone has any questions specifically about this, my information is at the bottom of the screen. But if you have any overall questions, feel free to put them in the Q&A box.
Awesome. Thanks, Michelle. So any questions that we have for our panelists, please put them in the Q&A box as well. We do have one in here. And I'm sure it varies from panelist to panelist for different industries, different degree programs, but how many industry hours are required for their master's? Was there any credits that were required, or credit-wise? What's everyone's different take on what it took to do your industry hours or internships if it was required for your master's?
I'll start. So for my master's program, it was a Master of Science in Business. So we either could do a thesis or a graduate internship. So I chose to do a graduate internship, which was, I believe it was like 9 credits. So it took a whole semester. So whatever the equivalent to a semester is. But again, my program was unique. I was in the first cohort for my master's program.
I can chime in here as well regarding to the STHM program. So I mentioned that the 2 in-person programs had an internship opportunity. So, depending on what program you get into, they're all a little bit different. But if you are looking at a program that has an internship, typically it's the very last thing you do before you graduate. It's the last semester, and it's 180 hours over the course of that entire semester. During your undergrad, you probably remember doing, 250 industry hours, 7 different experiences. That is not something that is a requirement at the master's level for STHM. But it's definitely encouraged. A lot of our graduate students still volunteer at games, get multiple internships, externships, and assistantships. But it's really going to depend on which program you're gravitating towards.
My program also required 2 internships. I think they were 100. One was a semester one. I think that was 120 hours. And then one was supposed to be a summer one. I did one at the school that I worked at Oklahoma State. And it took me actually the whole summer and another semester, because again, I was working full time. And then I did one at an HBCU. So I did at 2 different institutions and then 2 different areas to try to broaden my knowledge. And they were both 3 credits. So they were built into the final, like amount of credits that we needed to graduate.
I can speak from my experience as well. When I was at UCF, we also had internships that we had to do for my program. Not too sure what the hours was, but I know that the first internship was 3 credits that we did alongside 2 other classes. And then the last internship they had to do was in our final semester, which was similar to kind of STHM, and it was 9 credits. So it was a full semester. We weren't taking any courses. So like I said, it differs from program to program, but usually industry hours are built in. So we do get that, the resume, the experience, and not just the coursework. I don't see any other questions come in, so I'll give it a second or 2. But panelists, if you guys have anything else that you would like to add, maybe we didn't go over, things you want to cover, feel free to do so now. But I don't think we have anything else coming from the question and answer. So I will go ahead and close this out. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, everyone, for spending their lunch break with us to join this panel. I also want to thank our panelists, Denise, Alexis, Casey, Sean, Taylor, Michelle. Thank you for jumping on from STHM standpoint. Elena, thank you for running this. And also a shout out to Gabby and Zach behind the scenes for putting this all together and helping us coordinate all of this.
All right. So with that, this concludes today's webinar. As I mentioned at the start, this recording will be available in the coming week on the Max YouTube channel, as well as on the STHM Connections platform, along with other recordings from previous webinars. So with that, everyone have a great day. Thank you so much to all of the panelists, to the MAC, and to Michelle for joining us. Take care.